Hi everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this video. Today I'm going to show you guys how you can make the perfect arc in your custom sleeved extension cables. Now the real critical important factor in doing this is to get the length of the wire correct for the top and bottom wire. Now this has kind of been a kept secret in the professional sleeving community, but today I feel it's really important and necessary to show you guys because in order to learn and get better, you're going to have to know how to do it. So here I have some tools laid out, and these tools are going to be your basic tools that you'll need to make your pre-crimped wires. So here I have some side flush cutters. Now these will just be used to cut your wire and also to cut your sleeve. Here we have a ratchet crimper. Now this will crimp your 16 gauge and your 18 gauge wire. Be critical to get the right one if you want to do 16 gauge wire. And here we have our MDPC-X wire stripper. Now this is probably going to be the best wire stripper in the price range for this job. There's obviously going to be cheaper wire strippers, but those don't give you an even cut in your wire, and that's really important when you're trying to crimp your wires. And here we have the Molex brand terminal pins. Now it's really important you get the Molex brand because these have the longer wings, which will crimp and bite the insulation of the wire better, especially if you're using 16 gauge. And lastly, we have our custom 16 gauge wire. Now this wire is slightly less than 2 millimeters diameter, which makes it perfect for doing the heat shrinkless method. If you're going to use heat shrink in your final finished project, you want to make sure you go with an 18 gauge wire. This wire to be too thick to actually fit inside the connector properly. So only use this if you're doing the heat shrinkless method. So here you can see we have the two wires, one right underneath each other, and you can see it makes a perfect arc. Now this is the look that we want to go for, and you can see there's a little bit of a gap in between them. That's great because when we put the sleeve on it, it's actually going to cover that gap up. So we want to make sure there's at least a little slight gap, because if you don't, then the wires are going to overlap each other, and the bottom wire actually pop through the top. And that's something we definitely want to try to avoid. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to do it. So one thing I forgot to mention is you're definitely going to want a ruler, and you're going to want to get one that has inches on one side and millimeters on the other. So in order to measure our wire, we're going to put it right up against the zero. Now usually your wire will probably be longer length and not cut to size already like mine is, but just go ahead and take it, put it to the zero, and what you're going to do is just push it right up against the ruler and make it as straight as you can. It's very important that you get the wires the exact same length every time, otherwise you're going to have different variations within your extension. It's not going to look as clean. So right between the 11 and 12th inch mark, you can see I have two marks on the ruler. Now these are the marks that you're actually going to want to cut your wire at. This will give you that perfect arc. And so what you're going to want to do is just keep extending your wire down the ruler, pushing it up against, make sure it's nice and straight. And for the top wire, you actually want to stop at 12 inches. And for the bottom wire, you want to stop right about 11.5 inches. Now the distance between the two is actually around 13.2 millimeters, about there. But you can actually go a little longer, maybe around 14.5 millimeters, but you don't really want to go too far past that because then you'll start to see a gap underneath in between the bottom wire and the top wire. And then once you have your wire at the point where you want it, go ahead and take your flush cutters and just cut the wire right at that mark. Then once you cut the top wire, go ahead and grab the other wire, and this will be your bottom wire. You'll go ahead and cut it right at 11.5 inches. And once you're done cutting your wire to length, we now need to strip the ends of the wire. So go ahead and grab your MDPC-X wire stripper, set the guide to the very front as far as it will go. That's about a 5 millimeter strip. You go ahead and place the wire right in the center groove, and then just go ahead and squeeze the handles, and it will strip the ends right off for you. Very easy and actually really quick. And as you can see, it gives you a really nice, clean, straight cut. So next step is to grab your crimper and a terminal. Right now I have the female terminal, which I usually like to crimp first, and your wire. But first I like to show you guys how to exactly get a perfect crimp, because it's very important you get a perfect crimp on your wire, not only for electrical conductivity, but for strength of the terminal. And it's really important. So right here we have the ratchet crimper flipped upside down, and you can see the bottom die. There's actually on the back tooth, we only need to use the back for the ATX. The front is for your DuPont connectors and smaller terminals. But for the ATX, we want to use the back. So what you need to do is place the female terminal pin upside down inside the die, and you want to make sure that the wings are hitting the middle part of the die. There's like a little groove inside the middle, and you want to make sure the wings are right up against that. And here's what the female terminal will look like on the other side of the crimper. And in this shot here, you can get an actual close-up of how you want your terminal to be. You can kind of see the middle groove inside the bottom die there, and that's where you want your terminal wings to be. So what I like to do first before actually crimping the terminal on the wire is called a pre-crimp. Now this will allow you, when you go on to actually put the terminal on the wire, it will actually hold the terminal on the wire for you a lot easier. So all you need to do is click the ratchet 3 times and release it with the lever there. And there we have the pre-crimped female terminal. Now you can see that we have the bite or heart-shaped look on the back where the wings used to be, and that's the look you want to go for, because what that's going to do is once you start crimping it down onto the wire, that heart is going to then bite into the insulation of the wire and create a very strong crimp. So now we're ready to take the terminal and place it at the end of the wire. Just slip it right through the little heart shape that we had going there and place the wires. Make sure they're going inside the end of the terminal there. So we're going to talk about this a little more, what way you actually need your terminals facing. But for right now, this will actually be great for an 8-pin EPS extension. And what I like to do is with my pointer finger, hold the end of the terminal, push it up against on the wire so it stays right where it's at. Grab your crimper, and you're going to want to put the heart shape facing up into the top tooth, and you're going to push it forward until you feel it hit against the notch that we talked about earlier on the top or in the center of the die. Now here I almost crimped the terminal to the wire, but I wanted to stop to show you guys what it would look like once you have the terminal in the right spot on your crimper. You can see you don't see any part of the terminal on the back side there except right in the middle. And then all you have to do is push the handle of the crimper all the way down until it releases it by itself, and there you have your terminal crimped onto your wire. Now we're ready to crimp the male terminal onto the wire, but there's a couple of things that are a little bit different that you want to make sure that you don't smash when you're crimping the male terminal. So if you look at the top of the terminal, you can see these two guides. Now those guides actually guide the terminal when you push it inside the connector. There's a little tab at the top of the connector that actually slides in between those two tabs, and you want to make sure you do not crush those, because if you crush those, there's no way you're going to be able to put your wire's not going to work. It's not going to fit inside the connector and clip inside of it, what you want. So as you can see, I actually pushed the terminal up against the middle of the die, in that little notch that I was talking about. Now that's crucial for the male terminal. You want to make sure it's right up against that notch, because if it's not, you're most likely going to crush the two rails or guides at the top of the terminal, which I just told you about. Now you can see here that we're not even close to the rails at the top, and that's great. Then once it's in the right spot, go ahead and do exactly what you did with the female connector. Push the handles all the way down until it releases itself, and you'll have your male crimped onto your wire. Now that you have both of your terminals crimped on your wire, it's really important to explain which way your terminals need to be facing and which way your connectors need to be facing when you're making extensions. Now, when you're making a 24-pin extension or an 8-pin PCI Express extension or a 6-pin PCI Express extension, you want to make sure that the connectors are facing inward, because first of all, your connector, the male connector on your graphics card is usually upside down. So if you do a regular normal extension with the connector facing outward, you're not going to have an extension that's going to be arced the wrong way. And then so you're going to have to depin your whole extension that you just spent hours on, and then flip the connectors around just so it would work out right. Now with the 24-pin, if you notice, if you look on your motherboard, the retention clip is actually facing to the right of the motherboard. And so if you had a normal, if you had a 24-pin extension with a female connector facing outward, you're going to have to bend your connector around. It's the same kind of thing with the graphics card. So what you want is you want to have your connector actually facing inward, so that arc will work out just right and it'll go right behind the motherboard perfectly fine. But whatever you do, you want to make sure your connectors, both of them, are either facing towards each other or away from each other. If you have one facing in and the other one facing out, well, you're going to short out your power supply. You will probably damage your motherboard, because now you just flipped the wires around. You have the one cable going in one side fine, but then at the other side they're now flipped around because now the connector is facing the opposite way. So you definitely want to make sure that doesn't happen to you, because that would be really bad. And that about wraps up this video. I really hope you guys learned something from this. If not, then I hope you enjoyed watching it. Next video, I really want to finish this and actually add a sleeve to the wire to complete the actual extension. So that'll be probably in my next video or so. And please check out my PC modification store, modbunker.com. I'll have the links in the description. You can find a lot of the stuff that I actually used in this video I actually sell in my store. So if you could check it out, that'd be awesome. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer all your guys' questions. And as always, thank you for watching and have a great day.